This is Radio 97. It's time to talk law for this Thursday morning. Our resident lawyer, Despina Priala of boutique law firm Priala Legal in Runaway Bay, with us every Thursday just after 8:30. She brings her legal expertise and provides some general advice on the latest of hot topics. And a couple of hot ones for you this morning. She has experience that spans more than 25 years in the area of property and commercial law. She also prepares wills as part of estate planning and litigation. Morning to you, Despina.
Good morning, Wayne. Good morning, Brooke.
Good morning, Despina. Now, folks, if you've signed an off-the-plan contract in 2020, 2021 or 2022, beware, now may be the time to settle, but things may possibly go wrong, Despina. You've had a client recently and a few things have gone pear-shaped for him.
Unfortunately, it looks that way. So my topic for today is, are you absolutely ready to settle with your developer? Okay, so you've waited a long time. It's getting exciting. You've signed an off-the-plan contract maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and the project's near completion. So everyone's getting excited. Fantastic. And then, of course, you've got to get all your ducks lined up in a row to make sure that you can actually settle on that settlement date, which we don't know yet when it is, but it's coming soon, right? So we always say to buyers about 3 months out or thereabouts, start talking to your bank, your funder, your broker, whoever is going to fund the purchase, and start making inroads to make sure you've got everything lined up where you're needing finance. Or if you don't need finance, you've got to sell a property to get that cash. Make sure that's already sold, done and dusted, in the bag, the cash is in the account. Okay, so very much the message for today is that it is a buyer beware. And the buyer beware situation is you better be ready, because what's going to happen and what may very well happen to you, which is going to happen, I think, to some of my clients, is that if they're not ready to settle very soon on the settlement date for their dream home that they've been waiting for so long, that developer will ultimately not be very nice and end up saying, well, you know what, I'm not going to give you any extensions because I don't have to. You have to settle when we tell you to. And if you can't, I'm going to terminate your contract that you've been in for the last 18 months, 2 years. I'm going to take your deposit because I can, because you're in breach of contract. And you're going to lose your dream home because I can sell it to someone else for a much higher price.
Yep.
And this is what happened recently. So this is a real life situation.
What I'm talking about is something that I believe will very much happen on a particular off-the-plan project near where I am, up the north end of the coast, that's coming to completion very soon. And look, it's technically, can a developer do it? Yes. I mean, that's what we want to talk about, the technical side and the legal side, but also, is it fair? Is it just? All of those things that I think always go with these types of legal issues. And yes, if you've signed an off-the-plan contract, I've always said you got to get that pre-contract advice, because in that pre-contract advice, which I hope all buyers out there obtained, you should have been told very much that if you cannot settle on the settlement date, it is a breach of contract. It's a breach of contract because you've signed that contract promising that you will settle with that developer. And a lot of people are, I think, sometimes a bit flippant. You know, when they see an off-the-plan project, they go, oh, you know what? It's 2 years or 3 years down the track.
Yeah,
I'll just work out my funding later. Yep. Plenty of time to sort all that out. Let's just get it under contract so I don't miss out. It's that FOMO, the fear of missing out, that we definitely saw through this wave of, increase in property values through the pandemic. And now what we have is very much so the properties that you might have signed under contract 2 years ago have definitely increased in value. So that has and will, I suspect, motivate developers very much to go, well, I'm not going to be very sympathetic. I don't have to be legally. If you don't have the money to settle, I'm not going to be very nice about it. I'm not going to give you that 1, 2, 3 day, 7 day extension because I don't have to, because my contract doesn't say that I have to at all. And I'm just going to terminate, and I'm going to take your deposit because I can and sell it to someone else on the open market and at a much higher price. Now, all of that seems very unfair, and I agree that it is very unfair. And I in this case, don't act for those developers. So I don't really have any control. What I can do, and what we are doing at the moment, is notifying all of our buyers that we act for where we know projects are coming to the fruition, they're coming to completion, and we're warning them. And this is the message for today. We're warning people. We're saying, hey, you better get out there and you better organize yourself really well, right? Don't think the developer is going to go, yeah, sure, I'll give you an extension. Or the other issue is that some of our buyers have had to think about, for borrowing capacity, oh, I don't really have the capacity. I can't service the loan, it looks like, because, my income's not very good now, or I've changed jobs recently, which is a big no-no. Yeah.
And
So
of course, interest rates have gone up. I think it's 12 times over the last 12 months or so. So that's going to affect it as well.
Exactly. And no one could have predicted that 100%. Yep. Then again, the developer doesn't have to agree to anything. And this is the risk you take as a buyer, which is why it's always important to understand those potential risks before you sign it off the plan and say, yep, I accept those risks. I accept that. And I accept if I can't settle down the track, I might potentially, yes, lose that entire 10% deposit, which is a lot of money. And not just that, the developer can sue you for breach of contract and claim damages. Now, in this market where we've seen values increase, it's a pretty hard thing for a developer to argue they've suffered loss and damage, because if they can on-sell the unit or townhouse for, 100,000 more or whatever the increase is, where is the loss and damage? Mm-hmm. So very much so. Is it fair then that they pull your deposit? No, I say no in that case. If there's a downturn market, which again is a risk buyers always take, we're not in a downturn market since 21, really. We haven't seen prices crash, but that is also a potential risk that, in a downside market, things always can happen regardless. So there's always risks when you buy off the plan. And it's for buyers to get the message home that it's not always about, well, I better get in so I don't miss out. It is about assessing your risks at all times in an off-the-plan contract, because the goalposts have definitely shifted. They've changed in off-the-plan projects, very much so. Developers' mindsets have changed. They also take on different types of risks now because of what's happened in the construction industry. So you really want to make sure that you did get that advice beforehand, because this is a real reality. It's very much something that will happen to some of my buyers, that they won't be able to settle, and it will be devastating for them.
Is there any way around this? I mean, those people that are already in that situation, is there anything they can do?
We can plead to the developer and their representatives and their lawyers, and we will do that if not already. And if a developer does give you that extension to settle because, you need that time for whatever reason, they will charge default interest. I mean, because they can, because the contract says they can. They'll charge you legal costs, they'll charge you default interest, which is pretty hefty. It's usually up around between 10 and 12%. So, you could be paying thousands and thousands of dollars on top of. Mm-hmm. So this is why the message very much is, make sure you're ready. Make sure you go and see your bank today. Tell them that your project is coming to completion soon. What do I have to do to get all of my pre-finance or my preliminary approvals in place, right? And until that lot is registered, the bank can do their valuation. But before that happens, you as a buyer, you have to tick off all these items before the bank can even consider going to do a valuation. So there's lots and lots of things that you and your bank, your funder, have to do now, for weeks before we get to even thinking about, oh, well, the building's finished and we've been told the settlement's in 14 days, which it typically is once the plan is registered. Oh, fantastic. What do we do now? Well, no, you need to ask yourself now, what do I have to do to make sure I can settle on my dream apartment, unit, townhouse, whatever it is that you've signed up for 2 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah. And if you sign in off the plan Despina and the due date or the expectancy of completion could be 4 years down the track, is it a bit silly to go straight to the bank and get that sorted as soon as you sign, even though it's years away? Is there a point in time that's too early?
It's a really good question, and you can't get finance approval up front. That's the whole point. That's the risk you take. You can approach a bank early on, get preliminary approval based on your then financial position, which could be different to what your financial position would be at the time completion comes around, because loans are 50% about serviceability, very much so, plus the value of the property itself. So, you do take that risk. So yes, you can, but it may not be indicative of what you can obtain by way of a loan closer to completion. And the other risk that people take is, oh, well, if I can't service the loan, that's okay. I'll just bring mum and dad on, or I'll just bring my sister or brother on, or whoever they want as an other buyer, like a second, third buyer, to help with the loan. Well, this is the other complication my buyers have found, that, well, that means rescinding your current contract with your developer and signing a new one. But the developer doesn't have to agree to that either. And a lot of buyers think, oh, well, the developer will just help me out. Well, no, they don't have to. I think it's potentially, yes, unfair. You're not changing anything for the developer. You're not giving them any extra risk to take on. You're simply saying, can I have a new contract on exactly the same terms, but I got to bring mum and dad in because I need some help just to get that loan through because of, interest rate rises, serviceability. And the developer, I think by rights, maybe they should say yes. But often they're going to say no, because they know potentially on the track, well, that means you can't settle. That means I can pull it and I can sell it at a higher price. So beware. Beware.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Despina. Maybe not some good news this morning for some, but a warning that I think a lot of people might need. Thank you so much. And coming up next, what is the power of the thumbs up emoji in a court case? This is wild. A recent story that has come out of Canada. Despina has the details coming up next on Talking Law.
Are you confused about legal jargon? Do you need legal advice but don't know where to turn? Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97. Despina, a leading lawyer with over 20 years of experience, will demystify the law and provide practical advice to help you navigate legal issues. Whether it's a family matter, a property dispute, or a business concern, Talking Law has got you covered. Don't miss out on this valuable resource. Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97.